on what was supposed to be, a happy story. A lot of folks finishing a marathon and a lot of excitement down there, and here you are. I understand you've been pushed back from the scene. Is that correct?
Yes, that's why you hadn't seen me for about an hour, because we were right at Boylston and Clarendon, which is a block and a half from where these explosions happened. We now have had to clear the scene, as this is a ghost town on Boylston Street. It is completely empty. And then just within the last half an hour, they started shutting down the side streets. I think it's a bad sign, but about 10 minutes ago, we saw a dozen police cars come screaming down Clarendon past us. We could not see where they were going, but obviously there are other things that are still keeping this case quite active, and it's not just these first two explosions. I want to point out something else. From years of reporting here, we always say every year that the medical tent, what you see behind me here on my right, way down there on Stewart Street, right in front of the Fairmont Copley Plaza, that becomes the largest ER in the city every year on this one day. They prepare to take care of more than 1,000 runners. So there are more emergency beds in that tent than there are in any of the other hospitals in Boston combined. And today, very sadly, this tent has been used for a very unexpected and horrible tragedy. But as we've said over and over again, just moments after this explosion happened, the first one, response was immediate. I want to recap for you again what we saw, because we actually saw the explosions from our vantage point. We were in the truck, we heard the first one, we saw smoke coming out, and at first we thought it was perhaps some kind of cannon that was celebrating this marathon and not something that was devastating. We're running this video now that was taken by my colleague Don Nelson, who was manned on the bridge over the finish line. You see that bridge that they build every year in order to get all the runners coming across, that overhead view of the runners. He caught that explosion, and again, from eyewitness accounts, they saw two packages or bags, as someone described to me, against the building near 671 Boylston Street. That's a little bit more than halfway down the block from Dartmouth towards Exeter on the Newbury Street side. Again, those two explosions happened very, very close together. And then a little while after, another eyewitness who was frantically running in the other direction told me that he felt that he had heard that other devices had been found. That was something I could not really report initially, since this was unconfirmed. But then we heard that third explosion that was later confirmed to be a controlled explosion. And indeed, that was another device that was found. At this point, we've still not had official comment from law enforcement. They are still too busy dealing with this case. We're expecting, as you know, that news conference to come up in a short time later, but we've been reporting the numbers. Very devastating, the number of injuries and deaths from this. And that is the latest from where I am right now in Clarendon at Stewart Street. Janet Wu, 7 News.
Janet, I want to just touch upon something you said just a few moments ago. You mentioned that clearly you got the idea that something, you got pushed back so that there is clearly something still happening. We got a note earlier from counterterrorism officials, and just to let you know, and bomb technicians, that there were multiple explosive devices. Clearly the two that went off at the finish line of Boylston. There was a third device that they found, and that bomb technicians did a controlled explosion. They set it off themselves. So, but it leads us to believe in this note that we read earlier that there may be more devices in and around that area, which is exactly probably why police moved you in part and is trying to clear that area out of here.
Well, Reed, now I can tell you, because before I did not feel comfortable reporting this, but initially, right after that explosion, maybe it was a reporter instinct, I went tearing down Boylston the opposite way to go to the library grandstands, because that's where I thought it was. The explosions happened right across from it. I went into the grandstand, saw the location, saw the blown out windows, and a police officer came up to me and said, "Get out of here. We don't know what else could happen." And at that point, I have to tell you, I was terrified. He was yelling this to several people, but you have to understand the instincts of most of the people in the area at that time. Runners coming through who were turning around to find their family members again, because of course they have to go through that chute, get their water, get their medals, then they're able to circle back and go find their loved ones, the people that have come out to watch them cross the finish line. They were tearing in the opposite direction, still sweaty, some cold, trying to find their loved ones. Runners turning around, trying to find some of their friends who are participating in the marathon. marathon with them, and then just absolute chaos because you have from all directions emergency personnel descending on that
Janet?
one spot where these explosions happened.
Janet, I'm sorry to interrupt. We just want to stop you right there. We did just receive some information. A senior U.S. intelligence official says 2 more explosive devices have been found near the scene of the marathon where those 2 bombs detonated earlier. So now we're hearing that there were at least 4 explosive devices at this marathon. 2 went off. One, we understand, was detonated in a controlled blast